Welcome back to Homesteading with the Zimmermans, where each week we give you another episode of what's happening here on our Northeast Iowa 21-acre homestead. My husband Alvin and I have been married for 25 years, and we have 7 children. 5 of those children still live at home. Our oldest 2 are married and no longer live at home, so this means we also have 2 son-in-laws and 1 grandson so far. So on our 21-acre homestead, we seek to preserve the self-sufficient lifestyle of our old order Mennonite heritage for the next generation. We involve the children in every aspect of the homestead, from raising and harvesting our own meat, gardening and preserving to fill the family's larder, or preserving the dairy from the family milk cows, plus all the many other skills that develop the character and integrity and relationships of a family that seeks to bring glory and honor to their Heavenly Father. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to a Saturday episode of Homesteading with the Zimmermans. The reason I say a Saturday episode is because I've started doing 2 videos a week, 2 shorter videos a week, because I found myself trying to edit it down into, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and I was leaving a lot of footage behind that I wanted to share. So I decided to do 2 15 to 20 minute videos a week rather than one long one on Saturdays. So that means there is a Wednesday video where we tapped our maple trees for you to watch if you go back on our feed. And today's video is going to be all about quilts. And the other thing I have to show you today is the cover of my book. This is going to be a cover reveal, as they say, video, so don't go anywhere because I want to show you that cover. Hey friends. So today I have been invited to a quilting bee at my sister-in-law's house, and long story short, in the Mennonite culture, it's tradition that each bride gets 7 handmade quilts, 6 or 7. I probably varies from family to family. And these quilts are just part of her hope chest. It's part of what she uses, in her home, on guest beds. And so I have a niece that I think she's probably 18. And so her mom is beginning to work on her hope chest. And traditionally, the aunts and cousins and grandparents, grandmas would gather and help quilt the quilts for this bride's hope chest. So now my niece is not engaged. She's not dating as far as I know, but everybody knows it's headed that direction when they're that age. So it's time to start working on our hope chest, and I'm honored to be invited to this quilting bee. It's been a couple years since I've been invited to a quilting bee. So my sisters will be there, and my sister-in-laws, and probably a couple of my cousins. And so this little pouch is something that my grandma made for me when I was a young girl. And she quilted this little patch, and then she put a little keychain on it. And this little keychain is for your scissor. And then in this little pouch is where I keep my thimble. So I'm all set to go to this quilting bee. And here we go. I've got my own little quilting kit made by my grandma, and I'm gonna try to film a little bit of the quilting bee, but it's always, I have to kind of feel things out and see how receptive they might be to my request for filming. But anyway, I'll take you along on the part of the journey that I can and show you some of my handmade quilts that I got as a bride that my mom and grandma made for me, and it will be exciting. So the first thing I'm gonna do is go pick up my sister-in-law because she requested that I give her a ride. And I don't know if you noticed, but I am wearing a dress, and I really don't mind wearing a dress. And I don't always wear a dress when I go hang out with my Mennonite family, but it's kind of spring-like today, so I decided today's a good day to wear a dress. So when we get to my sister-in-law's house, she already has the quilt all pinned into the frame and it's ready to start quilting. You can tell she had to move some of her furniture from the living room to make room for the frame. But as we quilt, we will roll it up at the sides and it'll take up less room. The little girls, just like I did when I was a little girl, they're busy playing doll, using their cousins as baby dolls, and there's room for them to be at the quilt and practice using a needle. My niece here is using a needle and making a button necklace. And yes, the needle is sharp, but this is how she learns. And just the way I did when I was a little girl, I have so many memories of hanging out at the quilt frame with my mom and my aunts and my grandmas. And there was always a place at the very side that they would allow me to practice my stitching. And, you know, I could still hear them say, "Don't bump the quilt," because when you bump it, it causes them to stab their fingers when it shakes too much. And you can see the quilt is pinned into the frame and pulled tight. And this helps us make nice, neat stitches. I just love the look of a freshly quilted quilt. It's so nice and fluffy. And then my sister-in-law prepared a nice lunch for us, and my nieces did all the dishes. And then we sit back at the quilt frame. And here you can tell how the quilt keeps getting smaller, because as we make progress, we roll those sides in, and then we can reach and stitch the next row. And each mom or bride or daughter kind of has their ideas for how they want the quilt quilted. For this one, we were just following every seam. Every seam in the quilt we just followed, and that made the stars real puffy, and each little square got quilted around. But some quilts, when they have large empty spaces, they'll actually use a stencil and trace a pattern on it. And you know, they'll quilt along the pattern and you'll see a different pattern. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple examples of quilts that I have. But first of all, every Mennonite girl, or in my generation, you know, things change from generation to generation. But all of us sisters made one quilt. So the piecing the quilt together is when you sew the pieces together. Then actually quilting is what we did at my sister's house. And I'm going to show you. This is a quilt that I made all by myself. So I pieced all the pieces together before I was married. It was the same winter that I was teaching school. I would come home from school and I would work on this quilt. So I pieced it together and then we quilted it. My sister-in-law, I was living at their house at the time, so her and I quilted this entire quilt by hand. And so I actually should open this one up to show you. This is kind of like an everyday quilt, so we use this one a lot. So I think this pattern is called a log cabin barn raising. Let me see if I can stand on something. Nobody's here to help me. So you can kind of see, if I can lift it far enough, you can see the pattern better. This one's either called a log cabin barn raising or a log cabin star. And then this one my grandma made for me, and this one's very precious to me. Number one, because I was just little, and she knew I was at her house, and she knew that purple's my favorite color. And so she picked out this is called a scrap quilt. So my grandmother and my mom, they pieced quilts professionally. So they pieced quilts for people that had a quilt shop. So they got paid, right? But all the scraps that were left from piecing the quilts were theirs. So a lot of our quilts, like the This one that I just showed you, that is a scrap quilt because it's made out of all different colors. So my grandma, when she made this one's called a card trick. And when she made this one, you can tell that she had a purple theme in mind for me. And then all the cards are her scrap pieces. So then all these pieces are just scraps, but she made a purple theme by collecting all the purple fabric to do the borders. And so this one's special to me, but we use it. I don't want to not have any memories of this quilt, so we do use it. So this is a scrap quilt, and this is a scrap quilt made out of the scraps. And then this one, this is not a scrap quilt. And I don't know what the name of this pattern is. Some of you might know, but this one you can tell the fabric was purchased to coordinate. So, and this one we've used too. It's got some stains on it. Looks like it has some blue marker on it, but we use this one on our beds because here again, I want to have memories of using my quilts. I don't want to just store them. And here is what I was talking about. Where you have this big white center right here. And so that pattern that is quilted onto those big white patches, that's actually a stencil, and they trace it, and then you quilt along those lines, and they use like disappearing ink or disappearing pencil, and then it goes away after you use it, and then all that's left is the design. But the rest of these are quilted. Each little thing is quilted, each little square is quilted around, and that's what we were doing. We were quilting around there. So I don't know that I have some footage of what it works, but the reason you have to quilt a quilt is because you have your front piece that's all pieced together, and then you put, it's called batting. It's the stuff that makes it fluffy, and you put that in between, and then you have a backing. And the quilting is where you hold the back and the front and the batting all together, and it makes for a beautifully strong quilt. And so in Grandma's day, I actually have a blanket that she made like this. So my grandma was one of the most resourceful women I know, and I wrote about her in length in my book. Almost every chapter mentions Grandma's influence. But so this is not actually a quilt, this is what we call a comforter, right? She would take old army blankets and put them in between some flannel and make wool blankets. So this is a little comforter that she made. It's for a single bed. And instead of purchasing that batting that goes in between both layers, she put old army blankets in between. And then, because you can't quilt, the wool or, the comforters, which are made with a real thick batting because it makes them heavy and warm, those are knotted. So this one is knotted, and what that does is it keeps both layers together and makes it sturdy. So this is one of my favorite blankets. We use it all the time in the winter because it's actually wool. It's wool between two layers of flannel. And then, so while we're talking about comforters are just really heavy quilts, right? This is one of our favorite ones, and my mom made this one for me. She made all 6 of her daughters one like this. So it's just jean scraps, and the back side is flannel, and then the batting that's in here is a real thick, heavy batting. So that's what makes it a comforter. And then you can't quilt that because it's too heavy, so those get knotted, but that also keeps the front and the back together. So this one is one of our favorite ones in the winter because you can imagine the denim makes it so heavy, and then the heavy batting that's in between makes it real heavy. So this one, all the comforters that I have one of my favorite comforters to show you yet. I grabbed off of the kids' beds because it being wintertime, that's what we're using. So this comforter is from my grandma's stash. She made this one for my dad when him and mom got married. And I bought it from mom. Actually, yes, when my parents moved from the farm to their retirement home, they had an auction where they downsized all their belongings. And I bought this. So this one is precious to me because it was my grandma's, and then it was my dad's, and now it's mine. And guys, I've used this one every winter. I slept under this one. My siblings and I, we slept under this one every winter, and it is holding up well. So there you go, guys. There's a little bit of my love for quilting. Will I ever sit down and piece quilts like my mom and grandma did? I don't know. I really like sewing, so I probably will once I'm retired and don't have a lot of other things going on. But there you have it. And I have a lot more quilts than what I've showed you. You know what? I forgot to show you this one. So I already told you that the brides get 6 or 7 quilts and comforters, and the groom's family gets some as well. So Elvin's mom, she is a quilter as well. So she quilts. So this is one that Elvin's mom, this one actually, she bought these patches, these wildlife patches, and sewed them together to make a quilt. So this is one that we use all the time in the summer. And this is also one that we put in our camper. When we had a camper, we took it camping. And then Elvin's mom does, for each of the grandchildren that get married, she gives them a quilt as a wedding gift. So last winter, when we went to see them before Stacy's wedding, she brought out all her quilts and showed them to Stacy and said, which one would you like? And so Stacy chose one, and then grandma, like Stacy's grandma, my mother-in-law, and my sister-in-law, Stacy's aunts, they got together and they quilted it for Stacy and they sent it to her. So it's it's just very special. And when Tina got married, we hadn't been in to see Elvin's family, so they simply called and asked what colors she would like. And then my mother-in-law, Tina's grandma, she's pieced a quilt together. They all got together and quilted it. And it's a very special tradition. And I'm not sure that I'm doing my part in upholding it. Will I? I know that I'm not going to make 6 or 7 quilts for all, each of the 3 of my daughters. And, not every family is a quilting family, but those are the families that then purchase quilts that somebody else made for their daughters. And here again, it could be a tradition that is just really alive and well in my family, and there could be other Mennonite families that aren't as passionate about the tradition of handmade quilts.
Well, I don't have to be part of it.
No, I want you to be part of it.
You do?
Uh-huh.
Well, it is our story to tell.
It is.
And you tell it very, very well.
Okay. So I have my book in front of me to reveal the cover to you, and it feels a little bit like sending my baby off to school for the first time. So about 2 years ago, I was approached by an editor with Harvest House Publishing, and I ended up, long story short, signing a 2-book contract So last winter, I worked on book 1, and that's what I have here in front of me. And it's a collection of homesteading, how-to intertwined with stories and recipes and our experience.
Pictures.
Lots of beautiful pictures. So I've had my cover for a while, and I've just kind of kept it close. Because a lot of me went into this book, didn't it? Mm-hmm. But here goes. This is book 1, The Heart of the Homestead. Cultivating a spirit of simple living through homemaking, recipes, and family. So it won't be long, and this will be, we'll open pre-orders for you. But for now, here is the cover. I'm super excited to share this with you, and let me tell you, the pictures on the inside, there's some beautiful pictures inside, and I'm so thankful for the experience I had. When I was writing this book, I had no idea what it would feel like to kind of put it out there to all of you, and I couldn't even plan or comprehend that it would feel a little
Personal.
That it would feel a little personal, showing all of you this, but it's okay. I'm going to get to the point where I get excited for all of you to have this. It will release, it will come, pre-orders will open soon, and then it will actually release in September of this year. So you've also heard me talk about my cookbook. So I said it was a 2-book contract, and my second book is all recipes, like over 100 of our recipes. This book contains some of our basic favorite recipes, along with stories and tips and charts and things like that. But book 2 will be all recipes. So my daughters and I are working really hard at the recipes right now. But this one kind of gives you, this book is the heart of the homestead. It tells the why and how, and it really is the heart of our homestead, right? Yeah. Thank you for supporting me and being part of this. So there you go, guys. Thank you for being here. And you guys know that it's always enough for us, for you guys just to show up and watch our videos.
We appreciate each and every one that watches.
Yeah, that's always been enough for us. But the opportunity to write a book, it was a big challenge for me, and I loved it, and I grew through it, and I've learned to know some wonderful people at Harvest House, and it's been a wonderful experience, and I don't think I'll ever stop writing now that I've learned how much I actually love to write. It's just finding the time to do it. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. We love you. We appreciate you. And don't forget, we're now doing 2 videos a week. So I will be back with a video on Wednesday. And don't forget to sign up for our email list. That's in the description. That's where I'll probably email when pre-orders are open. And yeah. Thank you. See you next week.
Bye.